To make the little bear that we're going to do today, first of all we have to make a body, and we're going to be making a cylinder shape like this, a bit of a sausage shape. There's a small one. As I said, you can make it in any shape. I'm going to show you how you create that. You need a piece of carded bat, not a very big piece. I'm going to make this about half the way just to demonstrate. And then you're going to roll this into a cylinder at the same time as stabbing and basically holding it together. So I'm going to roll this up, and I'm going to fold it in a bit because I don't want it quite as wide as that. A bit like rolling a fajita, just pulling the ends. And roll it as tight as you can, because the tighter you get this, the easier it is going to be to needle felt. So you get your cylinder shape rolled up like this, and to hold it together you just want to do a few stabs with your needle. Okay, and then you're going to continually stab this until you get it into a shape, depending on the size, like this. Okay, I'm going to show you that just for a little while. I won't make you wait through the whole process on the watching. You need to get your cylinder. If you don't know what size you're going to do, start with the body, then the head, and then you can make the legs in proportion. And you do not have to have a template that says this needs to be 3 inches long or 4 inches long. Just start, pick a start, see what you get. If you've got one of the 3 needle tools, then you can use one of those. Make sure that you also stab in each end, and try and get a rounded end. You don't want a squared end to your project. The body should be a little bit rounded at the end. Do the same on the other end, gradually bringing in the wool. It will get smaller, remember, so if it looks a little bit long, don't worry. Just keep on stabbing the wool. You can do this with what we call core wool to begin with, which is the light natural wool, which is the cheapest wool that you can usually buy in any of the felting suppliers, and then cover it with the coloured wool when you get near the end. That way you don't use up quite so much of the coloured wool, which is a little bit more expensive. But with a small project, and this is only going to be sort of 3 or 4 inches high, my bear probably about 4.5 inches high, you could just use the coloured wool straight away. It really depends on your budget, and also depends on what you have available. If you have a good supply of core wool, then by all means. Many people may not, they may just have various colours. And if you bought a kit and you've only got loads of different colours and you don't have teddy bear kit, then you can make a rainbow bear. And here you basically make him either all one colour and then stripes of the rainbow, or make his legs one colour, his head another colour. It really doesn't matter. It's just a bit of fun to get the bear into the shape. So you continue. As you notice here, it's got a bit of a bend in the centre. It's got a bit soft where I didn't roll it quite so tight. So I'm just going to make sure that I push that together just to get it firmer. Squash it. So I don't want it to be too bendy in the middle, because I want my bear to be quite firm. Keep stabbing away. You can see this is still squashy. If you look at what I'm going to make the bear with, this is much, much firmer. That's a little bit softer, but would work. This is a nice firm one, which I stabbed away at for probably about 15 or 20 minutes this afternoon. My triple just to get prepared. I'm doing this with an individual needle because I think it's useful for beginners to realise you can just work with a needle. You do not have to buy a fancy 3 needle, you do not have to buy a holder. for your needle. If you don't want to, you could just use the needle in your hand. It's getting firmer and firmer, and then carry on stabbing in the end. Keep moving it so that you don't end up fixing it to your sponge or whatever surface you're working on. If you're having to improvise because you're at home, you don't have all the kits, you could get several balls of wool together with a bit of felt around the outside. That will form a pad, something soft that accepts the needle if necessary if you go through. The only thing you can't compromise on needle felting is the wool and the needle itself. You have to have the right kind of wool, and you have to have a barb needle. Sewing needles, as somebody asked me, won't work because they don't have. If you look at here, you've got the tiny little, very difficult to show you here, but you've got the tiny little barbs which come out the side of the needle blade, which push the wool together. I'll have to see if I can find a picture to put on this video, perhaps at the end, of what it would look like under a microscope, the actual needles. Right, so you carry on working away and get your body as firm as you can. I'm going to move, in the interest of time, onto my firmed one that I've got here. So I'm going to move that out of the way for the moment. Pop that there. Right, so when you've got your body, then you're going to make a head. Now, to make the head, again, you're going to have to roll it up, take your wool, but you want to roll it into a little ball. You want to try and get this as tight as you can. Keep rolling it left and right and folding over. When you think you've got it to around about the size, you don't have to use all the wool there. Just pull off the bits you don't need, put them aside, finish rolling it, stab it so it's holding together, and you've got a ball shape here. Roll it around to help you get the shape, and then you have to stab again to get a nice firm head. Keep doing this. It is difficult, sometimes you end up with a slightly oblong. If you do, just push in at the end that's sticking out the wrong shape, sculpt it away and keep moving in the shape that you want. If you find when you've needle felted it, the head is a bit too small for your body, you just put some more wool around the outside, roll it over again, take some more wool, and just keep adding different layers until you get to the right size. It's lovely, nice. You see bits of red wool has migrated into my wool. I think you'll find that the sound is very therapeutic. Stab, 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 stab. Your foam will pick up the various colours over time, so do keep one side for light work. If you're going to do anything in white, keep a nice clean side on the bottom of your foam. You can turn it around and use the other side. And also another way is to rub it like this and get some sellotape, pick up all the wool, clean it, and make sure it's nice and clean at the end of each project. Otherwise you'll find that you're picking up the colours into your work from whatever project you did before. I'm just going to use a 3 just to move this on a little bit quicker. You can see what's happening. Don't worry if he looks a little bit bubbly and a bit pock-marked as you're going through. It'll get smoother and smoother as he gets firmer and firmer. You can have different kinds of needles. A twisted needle, which is in the Heidi Feathers range, a purple-headed one, has the metal twisted at the bottom with the barbs on it instead of in a triangular shape. and that supposedly gives you a smoother finish. I'm just starting to try those out recently. I find they do give a little bit of a smoother finish to your work, but you wouldn't necessarily use them straight away. Perhaps use your red or your green needles, or slightly thicker needles, 38s, 36s. Careful with your fingers, hold it at the furthest part, make sure you're not stabbing yourself. Always have some plasters handy. If in doubt, when you get stabbed, stick your finger in your mouth, give it a suck, try and stop it. By all means, if you do put the needle right through your finger, think about it before you pull it backwards. The barbs won't like that. You may want to rush yourself up to A&E with it hanging out of your finger. That's never happened. Not yet, and certainly not on camera, I hope. Right, as you can see, the head is starting to come into its shape. The head I'm going to use today is probably going to be this one that I did earlier. It's a little bit firmer, probably started off the same size, but that now is much more firm. This is still quite squashy, so I'm going to put that aside with the other bit of body that I started before. I can use those for a different demo. So here we go, we've got the body and we've got the head. And that can actually be put together, but before we do that, I'm going to show you the other various parts to the equation, and obviously legs and arms. Now I've done 2 arms in readiness here for this size of body, and you can see those, and I'm going to show you how to make the legs. Now this is one method. You can basically make a small tube, much thinner than what you've done the body, and do it exactly the same way. Or there's another alternative way which I find speeds it up. I'm going to show you that with a bamboo stick to roll. So basically you lay your wool out, you get a bamboo skewer, cocktail sticks are probably a bit small, but you know, a kebab stick, anything like that. Wood if possible rather than metal, you'd probably find it easier, but anything you can find that's very thin, or a knitting needle in worst case. And then you fold over. I'm going to move my pad here so you can see what I'm doing at the very edge. You fold the wool over and you roll it up. So you keep doing that. Just make that into focus. You're going to keep rolling that up all the way along, and you make this as tight as possible, because the tighter you do this, the less stabbing you're going to have to actually get it together in a few minutes. You can see it takes quite a time if you're doing it very tight. If you look at that, it's quite tight. Don't rush it because it will be too loose. Keep going until you get to a sort of thickness that you want for a leg. Now you're going to find that this looks way too long. I've got about 7 inches worth here. Don't worry, because you're making one large leg, which you are then going to cut in half to get 2 equal lengths. So keep rolling it round. See, it's getting tighter and tighter. It's important to stress that rolling this tight is important. If you have it loose, then really you're not achieving anything better than just doing it the same way as you did the body. You can make all shapes like this actually to get it tight, help roll shapes, but obviously more lengthy ones. Right, I'm going to probably stop at about here. I think I've got quite a nice sort of thickness on my legs here. I don't want my teddy to be too fat. So I've got a little bit more wool than I need, so I'm going to pull that away. Leave that over there. Roll it around. And then just a few jabs. I want to make sure it doesn't come undone. This is just to secure it from unravelling. Do be careful because you're going to have the wood skewer inside. Don't want to break your needle. You should be able to just keep it tight tight. You can see there, you rolled up a bit like a lamb kebab stick. And then what you're going to do is you're not going to stab it with the stick still together. You're going to then pull it out completely like that, and it will stay there, and it's nice and tightly rolled. Then you can then work this, and keep working this, and I'm going to do this completely, because I haven't got spare legs made for my teddy. So these are the legs that are going to go on him. Don't worry too much about the ends, because you're going to do the ends in a little while, but just get the body all the way along as firm as you can. And it should firm up quite quickly. It's been tightly wound. Don't be tempted to do your felting too soft with the impatience. Keep going, get a firm felt, because it's a lot easier to fix your legs later on. Also looks a lot sturdier, it'll last, won't fall apart, but the wool won't molt off of it, and you get more satisfaction when you've done it much firmer, much more professional. You can get some very soft felting done by beginners usually, and it will never looks as good as what they do say a year later. Certainly that's been the case for me. My felting's got firmer and firmer as I've progressed, and I feel a lot happier with it. And I look back at some of the original projects I did and think, not really as good as I'd like it to be. But you improve. So keep going along. Once you're starting to get a firmness to that, you can then work on the ends. Push those in at the ends. Bear in mind he will have little feet, so if they look a little bit more blobby than the same length of the legs, that's not going to matter, because he does have slightly, if you can see there, slightly different clubbed ended feet to him. So you just keep going. Nice shape on the bottom. Keep pushing it in so it's tight from the end. Do remember, if you've watched Needlefelting Basics 1, you've got to push your needle in and out at the same angle, otherwise you'll break your needle. Keep pushing away. You can see there my foot is starting to have a much smoother sort of end to it. The other fluffy side. This bit of the leg doesn't seem as firm as that side, so. And this is going to be one continuous leg. Well, we're going to cut it in half, but you're going to make it like this continuously. And then you're going to cut it in half, repair where you've cut it, which is a quick way of changing the size of any object. And then it's going to be ready to put together the bear. Make it all in a jigsaw puzzle, and then we will sew it together. And we're not sewing it together with anything normal, we're going to be sewing it together with some dental floss, or satin dental tape, because it's very, very strong. So you're going to need some of that. It's always useful to look at the video first, then gather all your things together, and then perhaps try and make along looking at the video as you go from one piece to the next, and stopping it and pausing it. I do have written instructions for this, so if anybody would like those, if they'd like to put a comment at the bottom of the video, then I will organise how to get them to you. If I learn in my YouTube learning activities how to attach a document, I'll try and attach a document. I'm sure that's a possibility. Right, there we go. So we've got our legs. I would probably keep going a little bit firmer, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to stop at that point and use them as they are. I can always firm them up when they're on his body. Right, so I've got my two arms, which I've already done. The arms should be marginally thinner than the legs, so you can see that. And the legs probably could be just a little bit longer than the arms, because if you notice his legs are slightly longer than his arms, because I've actually made little feet with the bend at the bottom. So we're going to now do what some doctors would call sacrosanct. We're going to cut it. I'm going to cut it dead centre, hopefully. I have two raw ends here, which I'm going to have to mend together. It's going to look pretty much the same size. So, and we're going to take, move the arms out the way so you can see. Going to take a little bit of wool, and then we're going to blend that around the end just to make a nice repair to the bluntness where we've cut. You can do them separately, that's not a problem. I just find it's just quicker. I tend to find that I get them more evenly. If I do it as one and cut it in half, I tend to find that they're the same thickness. Otherwise it's very difficult to get your legs the same thickness. You can start with exactly the same amount of wool, you can measure it, as many people do. They say might use 1 gram or 2 grams, and you'll always have the same, but that's not necessarily the case. This is a method I've only been using recently, as I read about it in a book, and finding it really useful way of making animals' legs and body parts of bamboo. Right, so that's the end of that. You notice this end is probably going to be my foot end because it's slightly more chunky. Looser where it was cut. There we go. If you're making this from scratch and you're a beginner, you should allow yourself 3 hours. If you're a reasonably good felter, then you can do it in 2. I'm going to be doing it in less on this video, but then that's because, as they say, here's one I've made earlier bits. So I'm cheating slightly in order to speed it up. Right, I'm going to put a similarly piece of one on the end of this one, fold it over. You can use most different sort of carded back walls. They don't have to be Corriedale or Pentland or Shetland, lots of different ones. Any one I would sort of guard against when you're making a 3D model like this is not to use carded merino, because although it's been carded and it's not all in one long wisp, it's still very fine wool, and it will make it much harder for you. It takes a lot harder to needle felt. This Corriedale carded bat, which I get from Olive Wool, is about 29 to 32 microns, and that's how you talk about the thickness of wool in microns, and that's much easier to felt. I did start using merino months and months ago, and I found that very difficult. It's lovely and silky. I bought the wrong wool, I realised very quickly, and learnt to use otherwise. Right, here we go. Now we've got two legs. I think that one's slightly longer, so I'm just going to push in the end here to make this one a little bit shorter. I don't want a lopsided teddy bear. Always make things shorter, just keep stabbing away at the end, compacting the wool, and you'll lose a little bit of a ½ centimetre or what have you. That's better now, much more sort of even. I've got 2 legs and I've got a pair of arms, and I've got my body and I've got my head. So, as they say, what else do we need? Well, the head isn't going to be just round. He's got a little snouty nose, as you can see sideways there. He's got a little nose. Now that's going to be popped on top, and here's two I've made. Just either a round little ball, make a complete little round like that there, or if you've got a slightly larger sort of button shape nose and your character of your bear is uniquely yours, so you can have button shaped nose, so you can either have a round one and then you'll just stab that through, push it on, or what I find is useful, if you get a button shaped nose with a slight bit of fluff left where you've left it, it gives you something to attach. So I'm going to pop that on there, probably just about 40% up the head, not completely halfway, because you want to leave a little bit of room for the eyes, and you want that to be further down. So I'm going to use this fluffy end to attach to the head. It's going to be a bit loose and sticky out at that point. So I'm going to push down with my finger onto there and push through the snout into the head to actually make that affix itself. And you literally go around the base of his snout, keep pushing it down into his head. Nice and firm, you don't want it to fall off. And that looks like it's reasonably well attached. That can stay there for now. Right, there we go. The other part that we haven't made yet is some ears before we put them all together. We want a couple of little ears. I'm making them about that size. It's probably about the size of a 10p piece. I would suggest making these as a round rather than a sort of pointy like a mouse ears. Teddy bears are much rounder ears. So you have a little bit of fluffy wool, and what you want to do is you want to mark out a circle, and you're going to fold the wool over onto it. If it's your second one, just make sure you're marking out a circle a similar size to the first one, and then you're going to fold over the edges into the circle, basically just to give it a neat edging. And fold the other half over. You get sort of double thickness. Get the rest of the wool in the middle. Just use your needle just to guide the wool into the centre around the edge. You can hear me going quite far into the foam pad, and I'm going to show you what's going to happen. This is because it's flat felt and it's difficult. You can't just felt the depth, it's too shallow. So you're going to find that that's going to, when you pull it away from the foam pad, it's going to be quite fluffy. And what you have to do is turn it over and just very lightly get the fluffy ends into the body without it going as deep as you did on the first side. Just run your fingers over it like that. Now when you've got these more or less the same size, just needs a little bit of pushing in around the edge. There is a quick way of just getting the edges a bit tighter. You need to find yourself 2 table mats, little coasters, put them together. You put your button of the ear in between them on the corner. This just means that you can then felt the very edge of the ear, but you're holding it inside the 2 table mats. And what this does, it allows you to get into the tiny thinness of the depth of the ear. Most of all, you're not going to stab your fingers. This is very difficult to do, to get in around the edge. Just do it very gently around. Just if they've got a rounded corner. Little coasters are easier to hold. If you've got big mats, it's probably not as easy. It just allows you then, you've actually been able to get in to the very edge to make it nice and tight. I think those will probably do. That's a little bit out of the circle. Get close in. Right, so we've got 2 nice little ears. So we've got a body, a couple of ears, a head I mean, a couple of ears, body and some legs. Now the only thing we haven't done on the legs yet is make little feet, so we're going to decide that that's the thick end, and then we're just going to make a indentation where the foot's going to be, and just go across and across and across. And around. And then you can bend that up at that point, make his little foot, hold it tight there, and just push it so that your needle felt and the crease together. Make it hold, turn it over to the other side. And you've got a little foot. So then you've got a little foot at the bottom. Going to do the same for this one. Squash it up. Gives him a little bit more of a clubby foot. Push down a bit more, it doesn't want to bend up as easy, this one. It's a bit firmer at that end. Little bits of fuzz that come out as you're doing this, just needle felt them back in. Keep your hair as smooth as possible. Right, now he's got 2 little feet that are ready. Right, so we're going to finish the face first before we actually put him together. So we've now got a snout and a head, and what we need to do is we need to make 2 eyes. Now to do that, I'm going to choose where I'm going to make my eyes here, and then I'm going to just make a bit of an indentation before I put my wool in, because I want it to sit, I don't want him to be proud on his face. Either side of his nose, close together, further apart, whatever you like. Have a look at it, see if it's symmetrical. Look at expression on your bear is going to make all the difference. Right, and then you can see that he's got little indents for his eyes. And I'm now going to take some black merino wool, which is a long, thin, silky wool, and I'm going to pull a couple of wisps away, and then I'm going to start. I'm just going to lay it across the eye like that, and I'm going to get in the middle of the merino and push it in, and I'll let it loose. And then I'm going to keep stabbing this, and it'll keep feeding its way into the eye socket. Also, you can turn your needle around like this and the barbs will catch the wool and take them in to the centre of the eye. You can basically home, and then you've got your little eye socket filled with your black bear. Right, a little bit more on that side. Do the same on that. Get it anchored in the centre of the wool. Start to tap away. Feed the wool down into his eye socket. Do remember, if you make a mistake, you get one eye bigger than the other, you can either keep adding wool to even them up. You can pull it out again. You get the end of your needle and hook it, it will come out again, and then have a nice another try with a fresh bit of wool. If you really don't want one eye bigger than the other, it might look a little bit awkward. Tap away at these, and get them the right shape, and there we are, we've got two little eyes. So we're now going to do his nose. If we look at this one, you can see his nose is a little bit triangular, and then his mouth comes down underneath into a smile. So we're going to do a little bit of a triangle nose. Again, you just use the very thin black merino wool and just basically tap out either a triangle or a little round, whatever you want your shape of your nose. If you look at various bears in lots of photos or publications, they are all different. So it's up to you what the features of your face will be. A slightly triangular one for you to see here. What I'm doing is I'm using the wool to paint a triangular face on him like that. And then I'm going to feed the wool into the centre and fill it in. By drawing it first and then filling in the centre, I can make sure I don't make it too big. You can see this. It's difficult when you're doing a video to see whether it's good enough. I can zoom in. Right, I think that looks quite nice. He's got a nice little nose there. He's got some very fine black hairs. When I'm trying to push those all in, I'm just going to cut those off, the excess hair, just trim those off over the top. Right, I'm going to get my final little bit because he has to have a little happy smiley mouth. I'm going to make this very, very thin. Then fix in a smiley mouth. Features are difficult. Practice. Just keep practicing. My first bear looked a little bit moody. And I worked out you need to have a lovely, deep smile. It is hard. You will get there. Look up in Google how to make cute faces. Study some pictures of sort of cartoony faces before you start. When you've got your bear and you're happy with his face, you're going to have more left over. Just snip that off. Don't try pushing it in or you're too fat. It'll be too fat. And then just finish tapping away just to make sure it's fixed. And then when you think you've got a nice little beary shape, mine's kind of just straightforward. He's not smiley, he's just sort of straightforward bear, I think. Right, once you've done that, then you're going to attach his ears. And you want his ears to be on the back of his head. They come, if you can see that on the side, is up from the back of his head up to the top. They don't sit in the centre of his head. They come up from behind. So the best way is to just place one and push in across the back. Just gently get it almost there. And push in just on the edge, lose the edge. There we go. And then try and line up, look at your work while you're doing it, but careful with your hand. Now you want a gap between the two, do not overlap them. There should be a gap between the two when you look at it from the front. Teddy bears don't have overlapping ears, so give them a bit of space. If you find they're too big, cut them down, make them a bit smaller, or use them on a different bear. Although I do have bears with very big ears because I didn't do that. So it'll just be a different sort of bear. Right, so we're now getting a head that's looking quite nice. He looks quite cute. Right, so we need to put him together. So we need to get his head and we need to affix it to his body. Now you could have fixed the head to the body before you did the snout and the ears. I've done it because I wanted to show you how the head, how you can pick it up and move around with it. A bit easy to show on the video. When you come to put your head, line him up with the body. Hold on to the two pieces and push from one side into the other, mainly pushing from the body side because you don't want to change the head side too much. You only need a little bit because you're going to put a bit of a neck around him in a minute. And you can also knit him a scarf if you like, which will always cover up his join if you haven't managed it that well. Right, so I've pushed him together. That will mean he will hold together gently. But the best way to affix him is to get yourself a nice sort of longish piece of wool like that. Just twist it a little bit and tie it around him and use that to join together the two pieces. So you want to tap it half into his body, half in under his chin, and basically give him a little neck join. Get it in generally. You can tidy it up a little bit once you've got him started to join together. if you didn't want to make this a jointed bear, you would have left tufts at the top of each of the legs and arms, a bit like I did with the snout, and then you can needle felt them onto the body. If you like to make him jointed, then you round all of your legs and arms so they're fully complete. Jointed bears always, I think, look nicer, and it's just another little technique to learn. It's the same process if you want to join any little animal. Make all your body parts first and then join together, and the dental tape is a really, really good way of doing that. You can see that he's just coming together now with his neck, and it's just giving him that sort of joined up look, and he's getting sturdier. And you can keep firming that up, and you can lose a lot of it in the centre, so you don't end up with a big stalky neck. You have a little bit of space between his head and his body. The other alternative would have been to leave some tufts at the bottom of his head and join that onto the top of the body. I didn't do that this time. There's not one way to make a teddy bear. There's any way it works. Right, so we now have a bear with a body but no legs and arms so far. Right, so now we're going to work out how to join his body and his legs together. So we're going to take a long piece of dental tape. I might waste a bit, but I don't think it's expensive. We're going to thread that through a nice big darning needle. This one's not that big, but hopefully it should work. I'm going to do the leg first. I'm going to stick the leg on the side of the body. Then I'm going to start from the inside, and first of all I'm going to do this through the leg and leave a tail around about 4 inches, so that you can use that in a second. And then you're going to go back through the body very close, because you don't want to see the tape, and you're going to go all the way through. It's not quite where I wanted it to come out. Go back pretty much to the other side of the body. It's going to go all the way through. You won't see that. We can cover that with a little bit of wool if you see the stitches. Then you're going to go back out again. You're going to come out of the leg again, just to make it strong. And then you're going to whip that back through and out the other side of his leg, just into the body at the bottom, and then go back out and come up just near where you left the original tail, and then you can then cut that, and you're going to tie this like that, and tie it again. Tie nice and easily because of the waxing of the tape. And you're going to cut that off really close to the knot, and you've jointed your little bear. Now we're going to take a fluff of wool, just cover over. You can see my joint there. Just going to cover it over. Don't try to join him up, because it's the joint that's going to hold him onto the body. And we've got a little bear with a leg. to do the other one. I need a bit longer than that. And you do a similar thing with the arms. Almost fast forward this bit if you don't want to watch me doing exactly the same. Do make sure you turn the foot around when you're jointing him. I didn't, he's a bit sideways out. So I'm going to take it through the leg, leave it dangling. Put that through, and sort of a good 4 inches there. And then line it up, back through. Come out somewhere in his body. Get my end of my thread straight. And go back. Back through again. And then one final through. Main body, and then up into his hip socket. Whoops, I've lost the end. Bit hopeless. There we go. And out. Hip socket. Right, you've done that. And then take out your needle, tie it off. The aim is to go back and forward through the body and the leg a couple of times to anchor this and to give it some strength, so it's not just a few stitches of just the leg. One more tie. I'm going to cut the ends off of this tape. There we go. I've got 2 legs now. I'm just going to see if there needs to be a tiny little bit of covering of the entry and exit point of the floss. Do this as easy as I normally do, but as it always will when you're doing a video, it doesn't always come out as well as you'd like. Anyway, there we have 2 legs, basically his 2 little jointed legs, and you would just put the arms on exactly the same. I'm going to stop the video, attach his arms, so you don't have the pain of watching me do his arms, and then come back. So here we have our finished little bear with his arms now attached, and you can stand him up. You might need to prop him up slightly or put one leg further back, or you can just sit him down. He's got his alarms, he can wave, and you can make him a little scarf, or you could knit him a little jumper, or give him a little hat, or he could be holding a heart and be a hello to somebody, a bit like this little bunny here that I made before. She's holding a heart, so perhaps you could give your teddy bear a heart, or a nice big beach ball to hold, or basically just a big piece of card in the shape of a heart with somebody's name on it saying I love you. What about making a teddy bear for Valentine's Day? Be a great idea. You've got the time, why not? So hopefully this has been helpful. As I said, I do have some instructions of all the various stages that will help you to make your bear. So please put your name in the comments below and then I can send those to you. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, please do so, then you can see all the new videos that I'll be coming out with. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. They're free, so just enjoy them. Have fun making Needlefelt. Bye bye. Bye.